Rito was a fugly, hopeless idiot who couldn't even get his own shadow to flirt with him. But everything changed when a freaky demon princess crash-landed into his bathtub and declared him as her fiancé, forcing him to play boyfriend or risk her alien daddy blowing up Earth. It all started when an alien girl was being chased in space by some galactic army. They chased her so hard, but she refused to give up, and while she was almost caught, she decided to escape to the planet Earth. Meanwhile, Rito was in the bathroom taking his bath and thinking of how messed up his love life was when the alien girl suddenly came crashing into his tub, shocking him as he mistakenly grabbed her blossoms. Blood flowed to his head instantly, and he screamed, causing his sister to come running to check what was happening. He had crawled out of the bathroom by this time, and he told her that a clothless lady was in there. However, when she checked, there was no one in the bath, which made her tell him that he must be smoking crack already. Rito returned to his room, doubting his reality, but he suddenly found the same girl now in his room, almost popping his eyes out. He asked who the heck she was, and she introduced herself as Lala, from planet Deviluk. However, Rito didn't believe she was an alien since she was speaking the same language as him until she showed him her tail, which freaked him out instantly. He asked her why she was in his bath then, and she told him she used her technologia to appear here because she was being chased, shocking him. Just then, her robo-pet named Pei-Kei came in, and she became glad that he managed to escape too. She told him Pei-Kei was her costume robot and instantly pulled off Iron Man's suit deployment knockoff, surprising Rito. But before he could take in all that was happening, some men suddenly landed in his room, there to take Lala. Lala realized that her stupid robopet had been careless and soon began to struggle with the men, who planned to take her back to their planet. Rito wondered what in the god's green earth was going on in his room and quickly grabbed her and yeeted out through the window. As he ran off with her on the roof, Haruna happened to be taking a walk at that time and was surprised to see him pulling some undertrained ninja move on the roof with a girl. However, they soon got cornered, and while Rito tried to keep Lala from the men in suits, a dude named Zaston dropped from a UFO. He warned Rito to hand Lala over if he loved his life, but bro was ready to prove he was a hero, even though he was weaker than your Magnum. Just then, Zaston told Lala she couldn't keep running from home, and hearing this, Rito became shocked, realizing that his heroic acts were pointless as he was only meddling in a family fight. However, Lala refused to budge and immediately activated a vacuum device and instructed it to suck those mofos up. The device sucked them up all at once, while Rito watched in terror. However, the vacuum device soon began to suck up all the surrounding trees, and unfortunately, Ro also began to float toward the vacuum, which made him scream for his mama. And Lala, not knowing how to stop this, decided to break the device, saving him. The next day, on his way to school, Rito felt terrible about how unlucky he was with everything in his life. But as he sulked over this, Haruna suddenly called him, shocking him, and while she tried talking about what she saw the previous day, Rito interrupted, thinking this was the best time to shoot his shot. Haruna had been Rito's lifelong crush since their old school, but dude didn't have the balls to confess to her. And whenever he had tried to talk to her in the past, something dramatic always happened that proved the anime gods wanted his ugly behind single. This time, he wasn't going to let that happen as he immediately bent over to tell her he liked her. But when he raised his head, he discovered he had just confessed to the naughty alien he met yesterday. Lala hugged him immediately and said their marriage contract was now sealed, shocking Haruna. The next day, Rito woke up only to find Lala lying in the buff beside him, causing him to jump out of bed. He was freaked and asked what the heck she was doing, but she saw no problem with it, stating that she wanted to sleep with him. Just then, Rito's sister, Mikan, barged in, but quickly stepped out when she saw they were having a private adult moment. This instantly made Rito feel like he was done for already. Lala got dressed in her costume, and when Rito struggled to understand how shameless she was to have slept beside him like that without fearing his Magnum could act funny, she claimed they were engaged and couples on Earth were known to stay together, surprising him, and he told her he had no memory of them getting engaged or anything like that. Zaston entered at that moment and informed him that he had gotten engaged to Lala when he followed the traditional formal procedures from Deviluk. Bro wondered what the heck that meant, and Lala reminded him of the day he grappled her melons and confessed his love. Rito immediately tried explaining that it was an accident, but Zaston shut him up, saying there was no way grabbing a girl's plot could be a mistake. He then threatened that the ruler of Deviluk could wipe out the Earth in a snap if he tried anything funny, leaving him in a dilemma. He got to school later that day, wondering what to do now. He even got snubbed by Haruna while trying to talk to her, and realized that all his plans to bag her were now in shambles. So later he decided to go talk to her, but as he sneaked after her, she entered the female locker room. While he waited, he suddenly heard a commotion from the hallway and headed there, only to realize that Rito had come to visit him. He asked her what she was doing there, causing the boys around to ask who she was. Rito immediately used this opportunity to introduce herself as his bride, shocking everyone, including Sayuriyama, who wondered how he got such a hot chick. Lala made it worse when she said that they did what adults do the night before, turning all the boys into mad psychos, and they began to chase him as Rito quickly grabbed Lala and ran. They soon reached a dead end and Rito told Lala to use one of her technologia to warp them out of there. She activated it immediately, and they vanished instantly, leaving Rito's uniform behind. However, they reappeared in a locker, both of them without their clothes, freaking the dude out. Just then, Rito looked back and saw Haruna looking at them shocked. He tried to explain things to her, but she decorated his face with her 5 fingers. Returning home, he found out Zaston was already doing some back-end introduction, and thought to himself that he needed to change this ASAP before it got messier. So he pulled Zaston aside to ask him hypothetically what was needed to break the engagement, and he replied that he needed to repeat the initial process that got him engaged, which meant he needed to grab them bazookas and break the engagement. He went to set a deadline to carry this out after that, and began to find all ways to grab her double dangles, but couldn't get any chance no matter how he tried. So he decided to speak to her about it like a responsible man, but while he tried telling her his mind, she came up with the story of how they had tried to force her with different suitors in the past just because a successor was needed in her kingdom. But when she met him, she realized that not all men were scum after all. There were still some ugly good men, just like him. Rito realized that this was why she ran from home, and felt pity for her, which made it difficult to say what he planned to tell her until his deadline hit. The next day, he headed to school, sad as Lala's men hailed him as her fiancé, while he thought of the mess he had just gotten into, and how the school was the only place he now found peace. The teacher announced the arrival of a new transfer student. It was none other than Lala, shocking him.
Oh, hell no!
Following that, Rito took Lala to ask her why she transferred to the school, and she told him that she wanted to be with him. However, he told her not to let anyone know she was an alien, or it might cause a ruckus in the school, so she should avoid anything that would make her stand out. Meanwhile, she didn't listen and went to do the exact opposite of what he said, causing him to call her to the rooftop again to caution her. On his way back to the class, he got worried about how his chances were getting slimmer with Haruna and the mess Lala had put him into. He ran into Haruna, and they stepped out to have a talk. Rito thought this was his opportunity to clear up any misunderstanding with her, but while the idiot tried talking about it, he accidentally asked Haruna what she thought of Lala. Haruna told him Lala was pretty and lively, which she believed was the reason Rito fell for her. She finally said they both suited each other, immediately turning Rito into a stone because his chances with her were now absolute zero. Lala came to drag him away in this state and getting home. Mikan noticed he was depressed, so she suggested they tour the city to give him a new scenery while also showing Lala around. Lala changed into regular clothes, powered by Peike, and they had some fun time wandering around the city. However, after a while, Peike began to run out of power and Lala's clothes started to melt off her body, shocking them. Thinking fast, Rito grabbed her and headed to the next store before her private assets went public. Mikan then stepped away to get a fitting dress for her, and while Rito waited for them, he shockingly saw Haruna in the same store. Just then, Lala appeared in her new dress, instantly causing emotional damage to him again. They all visited the aquarium afterwards, and seeing the multitude of fish, Lala got carried away. Mikan, noticing the tension between Rito and Haruna, decided to be the perfect wingwoman, so she excused herself to go look for Lala. However, the riskless loser became stuck and nervous on what to say, so he suggested they walk around. But as he tried to leave, Haruna held his clothes and became shy, leaving Bro wondering what was going on. She then tried confessing to him, but was too embarrassed to do so, which immediately got Rito in the mood as he thought this was another opportunity to say how he felt. Meanwhile, this stupid idiot of an alien got to a section where she saw some inactive fish, so she thought they were unhappy and decided to make them excited by giving them some crack. The fish instantly got high and began to jump out of their pond while Lala laughed in excitement. However, the fish keeper soon appeared and told her that she was isekaiing the fish that way since they needed water to survive. Hearing this, Lala summoned a magical jug and began to pour out water till it filled the room. The dimwit then thought of swimming in the flood, but as she was about jumping in, the fish keeper decided to make the Brotherhood proud by telling her she shouldn't swim with her clothes on. He immediately changed into his panties, and seeing this, Lala quickly stripped too before jumping into the pool. The water soon began to flood the whole building, and before Rito could get his feelings over to Haruna, the flood came rushing toward them, so they had to run immediately before the water swept them away. The next day, Rito was happy as he walked to school because he had finally cleared things with Haruna. However, little did he know that the anime gods were planning something for him. Haruna appeared and was waiting for him, but as he ran toward her, he slipped and fell with his face into her cookie. This made her embarrassed, and she responded with a slap to his face, leaving him wondering how things had come to this again. The next day at school, Rito headed to the roof feeling terrible because Lala wouldn't stop telling everyone they were getting married. Zaston met him there and threatened to slice him in two, suspecting he was thinking of breaking things with Lala. Rito, scared, quickly cleared that he was just thinking that he was too young for marriage and still needed to finish school and stuff, which Zaston agreed to. However, he told Rito that he needed to be king of Deviluk, which was known for conquering interstellar territories, so he ought to be getting trained for the battlefield already. This made Rito scared as he thought of the 1001 ways he could die in space, so he ran for his life. In class, he continued to think of his future doom and yelled no like an idiot, leaving his classmates wondering if he was cracked. Later that night, during dinner, Zaston joined them, making Rito uncomfortable, and asked why the heck he was there. Zaston obviously came to eat, but Rito wondered if there was famine on their alien planet. Zaston ate the food with delight if this were the first time he was tasting something good, which prompted Mikan to ask what kind of food they ate in Deviluk. Lala gladly prepared whatever the crap that was, and when Rito tasted it, he saw heaven in view once, but his love for Haruna brought him back. He asked what that was, and Zaston explained that it was because they couldn't get enough ingredients. Lala also added that it was her first time cooking, and hearing this, Rito quickly took this opportunity to say that he wasn't gonna marry a bride that couldn't cook, intending to use this as a ground to push her away. He told her to return to where she came from if she couldn't cook, dropping Lala's jaw. She became sad and left for Deviluk immediately. Later that night, he remembered what he said but convinced himself that it was for the best. He kept convincing himself that he did the right thing in class the next day, or he might have risked fighting interstellar wars as the king of Deviluk. However, plot twist, Lala suddenly appeared in class and dragged him off to the lab to prepare some food for him. He explained why he acted the way he did, and she told him he didn't have to fight wars, actually, because even the present king hadn't fought in a long time. She soon changed into a Sue's apron without panties, which almost fried Rito's brain, but she quickly got her panties on. She then unleashed this mysterious chamber containing her cooking ingredients, and while she cooked, Haruna, who had been looking for them, entered the lab. She asked what they were doing when class was still on, and Lala replied that she was cooking for Rito because he had said he wanted to eat the homemade food of the one he loved, leaving Haruna speechless while Rito started throwing hands in embarrassment as he tried to explain to her. Suddenly, Haruna noticed a creature coming out of the mysterious chamber, which Lala identified as an Andromeda giant octopus. She said it ought to be frozen, and while Rito freaked out over how calm she was, the giant octopus rose 7 feet tall, instantly causing Haruna to pass out in fear. The cultured octopus grabbed her immediately and began to go down there, but Rito wasn't going to let it have a taste before him. The octopus soon captured all 3 of them and began to jiggle the girl's jello. Zaston made a grand entrance to save his princess at that moment, but got zapped by another octopus that had also appeared. The 2 octopuses soon began to do a vertical clapping, with the captured girls also bursting out at the same time from their floodgates. Other creatures soon made their debut in the show too, and they all went on to destroy the school's building. Some days later, a very classy hot girl who was too full of herself arrived in school, and everyone began to admire her. However, the admiration soon got transferred to Lala as soon as the boys saw her, which made Saki a bit uncomfortable, but she dismissed it, saying no one else was as hot as she was anyway. Later in the school's hallway, the same thing happened, which made her think that Lala was quite good at chasing clout. The same happened later in the library when Lala tried to pick a book on a shelf with her underparts showing in 4K. So this made Saki so jealous that she sent her subordinates to deliver a letter to Lala challenging her to a showdown. This was her chance to clear Lala off her rival list for good. But when she got on stage and unleashed her hot bikini to the thirsty audience, Lala didn't show up, making her wonder where the heck she was. However, she concluded that Lala was too humiliated to turn up since she was going to lose, but got more pissed and changed her mind when some dudes declared their wish to really see Lala in her bikini too. One of her girls suggested they lure Lala over with her supposed fiancé, and as soon as Rito got to the scene, Saki ordered a crane to come and air him to the whole school. Rito was brought closer to her, and his brain overloaded with blood when he saw those juicy tatas before him. Saki threatened to give him some milk if Lala didn't show up, and just as he was pressed closer to her milky bags, Lala and Zaston came running. They crashed Rito into Saki, putting them in a position fit for eating meat and cookies at the same time. Saki got embarrassed and tried to assault Lala, but her dog got into action, tearing her bikini off her body, so she ran off, saying she would remember this. Following that, Saki sent her girls to spy on Lala and Rito, and while at it, they found out that Lala was keeping a secret from the public. In a bid to get revenge, Saki became determined to find out what her secret was and expose her, so they sneaked into their compound that night, but they mistakenly triggered the security system, which immediately began to rain fire on them. However, Saki somehow managed to get in and luckily ended up in Lala's room. She hid under her table and waited patiently, hoping to find out her secret, but she mistakenly tapped a wall button, and the whole place began to shake immediately. Rito and others wondered what was going on and quickly came upstairs to check, only to find Lala's room rocketing into the sky. Zaston then explained that he had installed an escape pod in Lala's room so she could escape safely whenever a situation arose. Meanwhile, mid-air, Saki got really scared and begged Lala to stop the flying room, so she mounted the control panel to press some random buttons that instead unleashed missiles at Zaston, who was trying to help. A few moments later, the windows got slid open and Saki fell out of the room before Lala could save her. As she fell from the sky, she accepted her fate that this was the end, but Lala suddenly appeared, flying toward her. She caught up with her and saved her, but Saki soon woke up and found some thirsty men viewing her premium content for free. She rose up immediately, embarrassed, and she discovered that the creepy dog from earlier had torn off her clothes again. Meanwhile, Lala didn't even know where she had dropped her. The following week, Zaston discovered that a UFO was heading toward Earth, and even though he could stop it, he decided to chill and leave it to Rito to observe his abilities. An ugly alien soon stormed the school and immediately dipped to the toilet upon landing. Then he began to look for Lala by sniffing her scent till he found her classroom. Meanwhile, the class was having a biology class and was to dissect a frog already pinned to the table before them. However, Lala told Rito she would love to dissect him instead so she could know what he's got inside. She started to chase him around the class with tweezers and a knife while the alien, Jiburi, watched them. He got jealous, realizing that Rito was the princess's fiancé, but he soon caught Rito looking at Haruna as he ran from Lala and realized that Rito liked another girl. At that moment, the dwarf headmaster appeared and confronted Jiburi on why he had a costume on, thinking he was a student playing funny. However, Jiburi immediately shapeshifted to look like him and cast a spell on him to knock him out before dragging him away. He then headed to Lala's class to tell Haruna to come along with him to the gym equipment room. By this time, Rito and Lala were already outside, still chasing each other. The headmaster then told Sairuyama to inform Rito that he had Haruna with him in the gym equipment room. Sairuyama went to relay the message to Rito immediately, surprising him, so Rito excused himself and headed for the location. Getting there, he met an unpleasant sight of some monster tendrils giving Haruna a taste of pleasure. Surprised, he asked what the heck the headmaster was doing, and the headmaster instantly transformed back to an alien, shocking him. Jiburi then told him that he had to denounce his engagement with Lala because he was supposed to marry her instead to be the successor to Deviluk. While Rito delayed in his response, Jiburi controlled his tendrils to explore more plot regions, which immediately put Rito in the mood as he saw her pointed dots exposed, but he quickly snapped his cultured self back to his senses, saying this was not the time to get excited. He got angry and swore to be his behind so much, he'd think Diddy happened to him. Meanwhile, Lala summoned a little pig-like creature to sniff out where Rito was, and discovering the room, she jumped at him in excitement. She then saw Jiburi and was surprised. Jiburi asked her to marry him, or he would rend Haruna in pieces, but she told him she hated him more than poop. Jiburi immediately increased in size to intimidate, but Rito, confident in his plot armor, told Lala to rescue Haruna while he handled the monster. He launched at Jiburi with a punch, scaring him instantly, which shocked Rito, because he thought the monster was really him. Realizing that Jiburi was scared, he yelled at him, and Jiburi fell to the ground in fear before shrinking to his real size. It was then Rito realized that Jiburi was just a scared little sissy goblin who only pretended to be powerful with its shape-shifting abilities. Afterward, Rito saw Haruna on the ground, and he quickly turned to leave before his magnum aimed on auto. Later, Haruna woke up in the infirmary, and when she asked what happened, Lala told her she had fainted earlier, but Rito saved her. A few days later, while Rito ran to school, he saw a pretty chick by the roadside and wondered why she was wearing a guy's uniform, but he ran past her anyway. Later at school, a new student named Ren transferred to the school, and as he entered their class, all the girls melted because bro was too hot. However, he instantly started a chaos when he headed to Lala's seat and said he had finally found his bride. He then boldly told Rito he was going to reclaim Lala from him, but Lala interrupted and asked who the heck he was, instantly sending his aura to -5,000. He brought out a picture they snapped when they were young and showed her, which Lala immediately recognized. Rito and Sayuriyama wondered why he was wearing a girl's dress, though, to which he explained that they had forced him to wear a girl's dress when he was younger because he looked like a girl. However, he made it his life's mission to become more manly the day Lala promised to marry him if he increased his testosterone levels. Now, he was here to prove to Lala he was now a man. After the class, Ren started competing by all means to show that he was more of a man than Rito, and when he asked Lala for feedback, she destroyed him by saying she was not sure he was man enough yet. He then went to ask Rito why Lala accepted him, even though he was obviously more masculine than him. Rito told him that competing with him didn't in any way show manliness, shocking him. Ren wondered what to do then and decided to go around taking a survey of what girls considered manliness in a man. And after putting his discovery to use, Lala said he now looked like a circus clown rather than more manly.
Emotional damage!
On his way home that evening, he came across a movie talking about men and decided to buy the ticket. And after seeing the money, he got equipped with all the knowledge he needed to become a man. So he started his training arc to become like Gojo until he finally got recognized on TV as the next David Goggins. Seeing this, Rito told Lala she might just want to accept that bro was now a man before the matter got escalated more than this. However, Ren refused to meet Lala because he had not yet gotten to the extreme of masculinity. So he continued his training for the next 3 years, taking on new, difficult challenges as much as possible, while the girl he was training for just enjoyed herself in the shower. He finally participated in a 120-kilometer race, and after he completed it successfully, Lala was called to the stage to come and tell him what he had been dying to hear. But just as she took the microphone to talk, Ren sneezed and transformed into the girl Rito met on his way to school that day, shocking everyone. Actually, Ren had a unique genetic makeup that caused him to switch between genders whenever he sneezed. Lala felt it was inappropriate to tell a girl she was manly. About a week later, while Lala waited for Rito one morning, she got impatient about his delay and instantly activated a magnetic technology that pulled him from wherever he was instantly. Rito fell on Haruna in the process with his trousers still down, and seeing his mighty sausage, Haruna turned red and smacked his ugly mug immediately. Ren also jumped at him, asking for a kiss, but Saki appeared at that moment dressed like an OnlyFans model who wasn't making money from her content yet, and she began to fight for Rito too. Seeing all this mess, the Morals Committee officer Yui got angry and told them that all this had to stop. However, Ren and Saki didn't give a flip about what she was saying and continued dragging Rito between their melons. Ren then tried to kiss Rito, who was now all red, but she sneezed and turned into a man, shocking everyone. She got embarrassed instantly and knocked Peikea off Lala's head because she was trying to see his stuff, which immediately made Lala go uncensored. Seeing this, Yui passed out instantly. Following that, Yui thought that Rito was the mastermind behind the school's immorality since the girls were flocking around him, so she became determined to stop him at all costs. She got the school to pass a new bill in the school's law to ensure the students followed the moral code, and whoever didn't would be punished. The school began a thorough system to get the students to comply, and even the girls started wearing long skirts. Seeing the complaints of some of the students, Lala summoned a device that instantly created some love-shaped badges. Meanwhile, Yu caught her and took one, accusing her of bringing a contraband item to school. However, the badge activated and instantly made her uniform more sus, leaving her asking what the heck Lala did to her. But that wasn't all. The magnetic tech suddenly pulled Rito over again, and he came crashing into Yu's pillows. Due to this, Yu headed to the headmaster's office to get a sanction for Rito to be suspended from talking to any girl in school for 2 weeks. So he was put in a different class, isolated from everyone. This made Yu happy that the problem had been finally solved, thanks to Rito being removed, but things soon got naughty with the other girls, making Yu consider that Rito might not be the problem after all. Refusing to believe, she began to monitor him to see what he always did when alone, and she came to realize that he was pretty chill and responsible. Surprising her, he saw Yunjin, who had lost her way, and while he tried helping her to look for her parents, Yu offered to assist him. Later that evening, she confessed her surprise to him about how kind he was, unlike what she had initially thought. Meanwhile, Lala was talking with some girls about Rito, and a few moments later, she decided to call him with her magic tech. Rito suddenly grabbed Yue, who was standing before him, and raced against all odds to where Rito and her friends were. The next day, Rito was allowed to interact with girls again, but as he and Lala walked to school, she tripped over him, and her clothes vanished again, putting them in a sus position, which made Yu return the female band tag on his neck. A few days later, a dude from another planet landed on the Earth and began looking for Lala. Meanwhile, Rito suddenly began to feel feverish for no reason, as though his body knew that danger was on its way. They headed to the infirmary to get him treated, but they didn't meet the nurse. So Lala changed into a nurse costume and asked him to lie on the bed. They were almost creating a nurse-to-patient corn scenario when a hot-looking nurse entered. After the treatment, they returned to their classes, and this thirsty headmaster went in for treatment too. But bro couldn't get his bald head straight as he kept staring at the bouncy floaties before him. Despite the treatment, Rito still kept sneezing, and just then, the dude from another planet crash-landed a few meters away. He introduced himself as Picari from Carrara and asked if the guy Lala was engaged to was the ugly bozo standing with her. This made Rito pissed, and he told Picari he saw no difference between his suit and the Power Rangers. Picari immediately launched into the air and flew toward Rito to attack him, but Lala quickly pushed him out of harm's way. Picari then carried Lala, saying she was coming back with him, but as he flew away with her, she brought out a screwdriver drill to remove one of the screws on his suit, immediately deactivating it and crashing him to the ground while she flew off to look for Rito. Picari got frustrated that his suit was damaged, and while he sulked over this because he was useless without it, Ren, the male version, met him. Realizing that he was an alien too, Picari begged him to lend him some rakidium to repair his suit. Ren didn't have any with him but offered to help him get some since he was being a jerk about it. With this, Picari headed for Rito's home again to claim his bride. But Lala quickly stepped out with a racket while he was still in the air and Serena Williamsed him back into the forest, damaging his suit again. Picari started walking on 3 legs, but he met Zastin, who showed him where to get the required treatment and repairs for his suit. So he headed there immediately and met that baddie nurse who treated Rito at school. She then took him to a chamber to treat him. The next day, he went to look for Lala and caught her bouncing on top of Rito in the infirmary. He knocked Lala out by spraying her face with rakidium, and just as Rito tried to challenge him, he tied him up with rakidium ropes. He then grabbed Lala and attempted to take her with him to his planet, but the baddie nurse arrived just in time and mummified him. Afterward, Lala put him in a rocket and sent him back to his planet, never to return again. The nurse then revealed that she was also an alien but was specialized in treating other aliens. Later that night, while she worked at her special clinic, Zastin appeared there to get treated. Meanwhile, the nurse was not surprised since this was not his first time there. Rito woke up from a naughty dream where Haruna got frisky and begged to swap spit with him. However, he saw Lala lying beside him almost clothless and jumped out of them feeling embarrassed. Later, he sat down in a park thinking about the stress his sausage was going through every morning because Lala wouldn't stop showing him plot. Just then, he saw Zastin walking with a creepy alien and suspected they were heading to his house, so he followed them to know what they were planning. The aliens soon got in, and seeing Lala, she got excited, surprising Mikan and Rito that Lala knew her. Lala then introduced her as Stella, the chairman of her fan club back in Deviluk. Stella began to yap about how popular Lala was on their planet, and how everyone glazed her, so she was the one in charge of crowd control. Lala asked why she came to Earth, and she replied that she came to take her back to Deviluk for a project she was on. However, she instantly turned to stone when Lala told her she wasn't going back because she now had a fiancé and wanted to stay on Earth. A few hours later, when they had continued with their different activities, Stella regained consciousness and started to torture Rito for becoming Lala's fiancé without her permission. She then told him that he had to take the responsibility for what he did, so they hit the streets to start looking for cute girls to replace Lala. Rito, not understanding what all the fuss was about, wondered why she wanted a cute girl so badly. Stella replied that she was into public entertainment production and thought it was time for Lala Idol C debut, but realized she wasn't in for it, so he had to find a new talent. Hearing this, Rito suggested some random girls around, but Stella rejected them, saying they were not fit. She suddenly perceived a scent and immediately ran in its direction, with Rito following along. They soon discover it was Haruna, and Stella said she was the perfect fit, surprising Rito. He blatantly refused because Stella was planning to use her for something sus. And following this, Stella tried different tactics to capture her, but Rito saved her. However, he accidentally grabbed her softies and face dipped in her cookie while at it, causing Haruna to slap him before running off in embarrassment. Back in Rito's house that night, Mikan asked Stella if it was something she could do. Stella replied yes and brought up all the scenarios they could feature in, along with Rito and Lala, all of which involved Rito being their punching bag. A few moments later, Stella's colleagues called her from her planet to inform her that the Ayers had found out about their tax evasion, and they summoned her back to the planet instantly. Lala waved her goodbye excitedly, but Rito was concerned about who the heck was gonna foot the bill for the damaged roof. A few days later, Rito went out shopping on behalf of her sister and Lala, and while at it, he met Haruna, who asked him to assist her. They soon separated, and Rito got some cookies as he headed home. On his way, he met a hot chick with blonde hair and wondered who she was. However, their eyes locked, and she kept staring at him, making him wonder if she was looking at him or the cookies. So he offered her the cookies, hoping he could also get her cookies in return.
What do you mean by that?
She took the cookie and ate it, but while Rito began to yap about how the cookies made in that town were great, she moved closer to him and called his name, surprising him. But before he could process what was going on, she unleashed a sword and slashed at him. She told him someone had requested to isekai him, scaring him. He got to his feet immediately and began to run as the girl chased him. After dodging a few of her attacks, he managed to hide behind a wall, but she broke through the wall and walked toward him to deal the final blow. But Zaston suddenly appeared and blocked her. The two began to battle, and watching them, Mikado, the baddie nurse, identified that the assassin, named Yami, had the power to change any part of her body into a weapon at will, so she said it was best not to be involved in this one. Rito tried to stop her, but she told him the best she could do was give free medical treatment to whoever got injured. The battle continued, but while Zaston tried unleashing a move he had seen in a movie somewhere, he fell into a ditch. Now that he was out of the way, Yami then approached Rito to complete her mission, but Lala said no, she had to pass through her first. The two also began fighting, with Lala deploying her toys as much as she could, but Yami mocked that this was a real battle, not some child's play. As Yami jumped from roof to roof, the headmaster got a glimpse of her undergarments and began to jizz in his pants. He even tried blowing at it to get a better view, but Yami noticed him and sent a barrage of punches at the idiot. However, this little distraction gave Lala an opening to capture her, but she broke off instantly. Yami asked Lala why she was defending Rito even though he was a threat to Deviluk. However, Lala told her that Rito was not like that, which made Yami remember when he offered her his cookies. But she said that she had no option but to carry out her mission anyway. Just then, the ugliest alien of the show named Lacospo appeared at that moment and revealed that he was the one who hired the assassin to take care of Rito, because he was angry that Rito was getting in between him and Lala. He asked Lala to marry him, but she refused, saying there was no way she would marry someone that cruel. Hearing this, Lacospo got pissed and ordered Yami to eliminate Rito, but she said she realized that Lacospo had lied about Rito, so she wasn't going to follow through with the mission. Lacospo immediately summons a monster frog capable of melting clothes with its mucus, but Lala managed to defeat it. Afterward, Yami asked her why she saved her, who was an enemy, and she replied that she knew she was beautiful at heart but only did what she did because she had to. Rito then told her she could return to her planet now since Lacospo was gone, but she replied that her rules forbade running away from a job. She added that she would continue to live here until she got rid of him. A few days later, Rito was hyped because it was finally time for the school's legendary sports festival. He had dreams of winning medals, flexing hard, and showing them off to his crush, Haruna. But he wasn't the only one out to prove a point. Saki was still salty about Lala being the walking definition of beauty and vowed to outshine her by any means necessary. The boys' competition kicked off with a good old scavenger hunt. Ren, running purely on simp energy for Lala, was determined to one-up Rito. Sadly, the universe had other plans. He drew a task that said he had to find a legendary sword. Meanwhile, the basketball team captain pulled a slip asking for the heart of true love. This man didn't even hesitate. He confessed to Lala right there on the field, but she rejected him so fast the background music skipped. Then came Rito's turn, and his task was to retrieve a girl's freshly removed panties. He just stared at the paper and freaked out like a defeated NPC, and questioned why life hated him. Before he could mentally recover, Lala's robot army spawned in like side characters with cheat codes and launched him toward the girls like a missile. He tumbled forward, crashed into Haruna, and somehow ended up holding the very item he was supposed to retrieve. Haruna responded with a slap that nearly rewired his entire bloodline. Next was the girls' obstacle race, and it wasn't just about speed. It was emotional sabotage with physical fitness sprinkled in. Yui took the lead, but the first challenge was parental approval, and she froze like her heart had lag. Haruna stepped up, but a random woman holding a jit popped out claiming it was for her boyfriend, shocking Haruna, who got booted out of the race immediately. Saki was next, and her obstacle was a cop telling her that her lover had just been sentenced to a 20-year prison bid. She stared into the void and backed out. Then came Lala, and her challenge was literal loan sharks demanding she pay her lover's debts with her body. Instead of folding, she turned into a shonen protagonist, dropped them with ease, and cleared the race like a boss. Then came the mixed relay. Rito was sweating bullets because he had to pass the baton to Haruna, and after the earlier slap, he wasn't sure if she'd stab him with it instead. Things were going okay until it was Ren's turn, but Bro was still out there looking for his RP weapon. Just when it seemed like the team was about to take the L, Ren pulled up mid-race in full medieval armor, legendary sword in hand, like he'd just come from a side quest. He grabbed the baton and sprinted, but when it was time to pass it to Rito, he tripped. The sword hit the ground, summoned an earthquake, and Rito nearly fell off the rift. Haruna reached out to save him, but the unfortunate moron mistakenly grabbed her melons instead of her outstretched arm, and as expected, the slap that followed launched him into the next dimension. Later, the school nurse had her hands full patching up these walking disasters, but there was no rest. Next up was the cavalry battle. Rito had to carry Haruna on his back, which was bad news because he figured she was still holding a grudge. Right before the whistle blew, Saki whipped out a remote control, pressed a button, and a pool arena rose from the ground, transforming the event into Waterworld. Everyone changed into swimsuits, and chaos officially began. Saki activated another remote, sending out flying gadgets programmed to slice off Lala's swimsuit. Unfortunately for her, when Lala's swimsuit got slashed, Pet K respawned a new one instantly, making Saki go feral with frustration. She cranked up the speed, turning the whole arena into a flying wardrobe malfunction simulator. While carrying Lala, Ren suddenly sneezed and turned into a girl mid-match. Haruna didn't survive the chaos either. She got knocked out and drifted in the water like a sunken ship. Rito rescued her while everyone else was distracted, and Lala seized the chance to snatch Saki's cap and win. However, Saki didn't take the loss well, and wanted a rematch like Ashton Hall. She unleashed a giant ball and hurled it straight at the winners like a final boss. Meanwhile, back in the infirmary, Rito tried to apologize to Haruna. She was about to forgive him until Saki's rogue beach ball busted through the wall and sent him landing face first on Haruna's pillows again. Meanwhile, far, far away on some random planet, the supreme ruler of the cosmos, Gid-Lucian Deviluk, casually folded an entire warrior tribe like laundry. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Rito woke up to his usual breakfast routine. Extreme confusion and an unclothed Lala casually lounging beside him like it's a lifestyle. At breakfast, things took a turn. Zastan delivered the news of doom, saying the king of Deviluk himself was paying a surprise visit to Earth. Apparently, the king had speedrun an entire planetary conquest and now had free time to check if his future son-in-law wasn't a complete disappointment. He also told Rito to be careful because the king might be watching him already. The next day, Rito dragged his anxiety to school. In his head, he was already battling 12-foot muscular aliens with laser beards. Rito figured the best defense was honesty, but there was a slight bug in the system. He still hadn't figured out whether he liked Lala. At school, Rito tried to act like a civilized citizen, but the universe had other plans. Saki pulled another stunt trying to capture Rito, but instead of Rito, they got Yui tied up in sus way and dipped. Rito tried to help, but those ropes were built like level 99 dungeon binds. Eventually, Lala brought out her handy-dandy sci-fi scissors, which worked a little too well as they also cut through Yui's clothes. Rito instinctively dove in for a Pete-13 cover-up hug just before Haruna threw a jacket over the scene to prevent total social destruction. Unbeknownst to the gang, a mysterious woman had been silently spying from the ceiling. Later on, Rito found himself again, one morally gray decision away from permanent expulsion. He got detention duty with Haruna, which he thought would be the perfect moment to finally get emotional. But before he could process a single thought, the school speaker summoned him to the rooftop like it was Judgment Day. There he was met by Mikado, who mysteriously claimed someone was waiting. The mysterious lady activated flirt mode and confronted Rito with a full slideshow presentation of him being caught in fork with nearly every girl in school. Rito, stunned, tried to play innocent, but she turned up the heat by trying to seduce him on the spot. Before things escalated, a voice thundered through the air, and the woman instantly collapsed. Then appeared a funny-looking miniature alien. Rito, thinking it was just some cosmic yunjin, told him to go lick some sweets and leave adult matters, but he suddenly noticed the tail and realized it was similar to Lala's. He soon discovered that the grumpy space goblin was none other than the king of Deviluk. The king then flamed Rito for juggling too many girls and demanded to know what Rito would do for Lala. Rito went silent, and the king further asked if he liked Lala, but he was silent still, not knowing what to answer. Disappointed but not surprised, the king decided Earth wasn't worth saving and prepared to send it to the recycle bin. But just before the king could turn him and the planet into space dust, Lala yelled at him to stop. Then she defended Rito with crocodile tears and a monologue worthy of an anime ending theme. She listed his awkward, kind and clueless but earnest traits, and finally she dropped that she really loved him. shocked by his daughter's loyalty. The king left Rito alone, but warned him that if he wanted to keep breathing, he'd better become the #1 man in the universe. That night, Rito went into full emo lockdown mode, wondering what the heck he was going to do now. He eventually decided it was time to glow up, so he went to meet Zastin and the girls to tell them he was going to do his best to become the #1 in the universe. The very next day, Rito decided it was time to stop being a walking embarrassment and become a better man. But he had one problem. Bro had absolutely no clue where to start. But then his eyes landed on a football, and just like that, he imagined himself as the next Messi, except his body looked more like it was built for naps than goals. So, he settled for jogging instead until he ran out of breath after like 2 steps and crash-landed at a park bench like an overheated phone. Just as he tried to process his mini heart attack, he spotted Haruna casually walking her dog. She noticed him dying quietly in the corner and somehow ended up encouraging his self-improvement journey. Rito, who was still trying to breathe like a normal human, didn't tell Lala a single thing about it when he got home. Next day at school, he and Haruna were out there trading glances like undercover agents. Every afternoon, he kept jogging like a motivated main character, and Haruna kept showing up like a loyal sidekick, armed with snacks and emotional support. Then came the rainy day. Any normal person would have stayed inside with hot chocolate, but Rito pulled a shonen move and still hit the track, because the thought of possibly seeing Haruna had him sprinting through puddles. That same day, she finally asked if he'd be jogging on Sunday. Apparently, she wanted to bring him a homemade bento, which made him very excited. Sunday arrived, and both of them were acting like it was their wedding day. Rito did his jog, Haruna served up that 5-star homemade lunch, and everything was peaceful until her dog leaped into the canal like it was a mission. Without thinking, Rito dove in like Aquaman on a budget and rescued the mutt. With his clothes dripping and dignity sinking, Haruna took him to her place to dry off. She even let him take a bath, but Rito speed-ran the bath and came out wrapped in nothing but a towel. Haruna told him to chill in her room while she made tea. Meanwhile, Rito started scanning the place and stumbled on a bunch of her old photos from their old school. But that's when things got real, because he was in all the pictures. Before he could process being the background star of her younger years, the kettle screamed, Haruna rushed off, and as fate would have it, Rito tripped, and because gravity is evil, he landed right on top of her. Haruna's sister walked in to witness the chaos, and just to make things worse, Rito's towel chose that exact moment to betray him. He got embarrassed and dipped faster than the flash immediately. A few days later, Zastin dive-bombed into Rito and Lala's school like a space knight on a tight schedule. Students nearly lost their minds at his sight, but Zastin wasn't there to play games though. He told Lala she had royal business to handle ASAP. It was then everyone discovered that the girl they thought was just extra was actually an alien princess. But instead of freaking out like normal humans should, the students even liked her more, surprising Rito. Meanwhile, Zastin scooped up Lala and rocketed back into space, dragging poor Rito and Haruna along though. On the spaceship, it was revealed that a bigwig named Lord Carter, a royal ally of Deviluk, was nearby, and Lala had to go shake alien hands and smile for photos as part of her princess duties. Everyone got dressed like they were about to attend a cosmic gala, then made their way to Lord Carter's spaceship. Carter welcomed them and asked Lala to dance, but soon casually dropped that he'd be going to Earth to hunt. Rito, suddenly remembering the motivational speech Lala's dad once gave him about being a great man, decided this was his anime character development arc and volunteered to join the hunt. Lord Carter wasn't impressed, but since Rito was technically the fiancé and Earth's representative, he allowed it, but on the condition that Rito used their weapons and followed their hunting rules. The squad descended straight into the middle of the Guyana jungle, and when Rito looked around, he immediately regretted his life choices when he saw a Jurassic zoo of giant bugs and dinosaurs. But things escalated fast. Haruna got cornered by a giant gorilla who came to show them even 100 men were not enough. Rito tried to act brave and attacked, but his attacks were useless. Just as the gorilla was about to squash him, a barrage of arrows rained down like divine intervention. A whole tribe of Amazonian warrior women who bargained with the gorilla that he should release Rito to them, while he took Haruna with him for his clapping fantasy. They took Rito immediately as the gorilla walked away with Haruna, thinking of how to get his sausage through tight spaces.
Damn!
Haruna pleaded for him to help Rito, but the gorilla didn't care. Meanwhile, the Amazon queen was ready to claim her prize, removing her armor with full ceremony. Just as Rito's life flashed before his eyes, Lala showed up and declared that Rito was already taken. A fight broke out, and Lala held her own until one Amazon got a sneak grab on her tail, instantly turning her into a helpless noodle. Because her tail was her R spot, Before things turned R-rated, Haruna pulled off the comeback of the year by rolling in on the same gorilla that tried to eat them earlier, now fully tamed like a jungle uber. She commanded it to protect her friends, and the Amazons, shocked that this random girl could tame such a beast, fled like NPCs after a boss battle. Lord Carter, who had been watching the chaos, was surprised Haruna could tame the Jungle King. Back on his ship, he handed Haruna a massive golden cup and declared her the greatest huntress in the universe, which made Rito sad because that was what he wanted. The next morning, Haruna woke up thinking it was just another weird dream until she saw the glowing golden trophy. That's when she realized that the jungle mess really happened. Some weeks later, summer finally pulled up, and the squad decided it was time to hit the amusement park pool. Everyone was hyped, but Lala was the most excited there since it was her first time at a place like this. While the whole gang was busy splashing and vibing, Run, the female version of Ren, sat on the sidelines like a rejected DLC character, watching Rito have the time of his life with every girl except her. After countless failed missions to make him notice her, she became determined to risk it all, so he finally proposed and make her his main babe. Her first mission was an underwater sneak attack in a full diving suit, but she failed at that one, not one to quit. She went full-blown action mode and stalked Rito while he was out grabbing ice cream for Lala and Haruna. Then, without warning, she tackled him from behind, causing the poor guy to trip and launch the ice cream straight into Yui and Yami's balloons, annoying them. Later on, Run watched the girls around him and decided they were clearly blocking her happily ever after arc, so she began plotting to ruin them by removing their swimsuits and revealing their plots to the public. But as expected, every genius attempt ended in Rito being turned into collateral damage, taking all the lulls while the girls remained untouched. Out of patience and good ideas, Run brought out her final move, unleashing some space fish that ate fabric, but Lala countered this with her net cannon to scoop up all the little cultured creatures. Rito then noticed one oddly chubby fish and realized that it must have been their boss, but they soon discovered that it was Run in disguise. After being exposed, she confessed that it was all for Rito. The girls immediately jumped to conclusions and started blaming Rito, which made him furious as he denied all the charges. This made Run feel, and she stomped off immediately. She then bumped into some random dude trying to impress his friends by acting like a girl magnet, and when he offered her a meal, she nearly bankrupted the idiot. Wandering aimlessly again, she stumbled upon an idol performance and got inspired. If she became famous, maybe Rito would finally worship the ground she walked on. She begged the school's sensei to turn her into a top-tier idol. He was reluctant, mostly because that was not in his job description, but ended up getting dragged into a montage of screaming, singing, and twirling. The poor sensei soon pleaded to go to his house, shattering Run's heart and dreams. However, Run decided to pivot careers and declared that swimsuit modeling was her true destiny. Meanwhile, Haruna casually dropped wisdom on Rito, pointing out that Run might actually like him, which was why she felt terrible when he spoke harshly to her. Rito felt guilty and went to look for her immediately. He found her in the middle of being harassed by random street thugs. He tried to protect her, but he was nothing but a weakling. However, Lala swooped in with another one of her gadgets and blasted the bad guys into oblivion. Run eventually thanked them both, and Rito apologized for talking to her that way. Then Run vowed that she was not going to give up on her love. A few days later, a rumor spread through the school about a ghost haunting the old school building. Haruna felt scared just hearing the story, but Lala got excited and wanted to see the ghost for herself. Haruna didn't want to go, but her friends finally talked her into joining them on a ghost hunt. Rito overheard their plan and decided to go too, mostly because he knew Haruna was nervous. The five of them went to the old building and were surprised to find the door already unlocked. They stepped inside. It was dark, dusty, and the wooden floor creaked with every step. Out of nowhere, they heard a strange sound. Rito tried to be brave and went to check it out, but it turned out to be Yami, sitting quietly and reading some old books. Another sound startled them again, but it was just Yui. She had heard the others and secretly followed them. Everyone started thinking the ghost story was fake, until a deep voice suddenly shouted at them to leave. Before they could move, the floor beneath them gave way and they all crashed into the level below. As soon as they hit the ground, a piano nearby started playing creepy notes by itself. Then, somehow, the piano came to life and began chasing them through the room. Yami quickly changed her arm into a sword and smashed it to pieces. They thought the worst was over, but suddenly, a skeleton and a half-man creature appeared and started running after them, yelling for them to leave. All the girls fainted in fear except Yui and Lala. Lala, staying oddly calm, wondered how they could even talk. While chasing them, the skeleton slipped and smashed into a water tap. A strong burst of water shot out, knocking Pei-Kei off Lala's head. With Pei-Kei gone, Lala's clothes disappeared, Things got even weirder when small furry creatures crawled out of the skeleton and the half-man. They joined together and turned into a huge monster. Lala and Yami tried to fight it, but it was too strong. Just then, Haruna woke up, saw the terrifying creature, and panicked. Without thinking, she grabbed Rito and swung him like a club, hitting the monster so hard it finally went down. It turned out the monster wasn't a ghost at all. They were aliens from other planets who had no home and were hiding in the abandoned school building. Mikado showed up and offered to help them find jobs on Earth. Rito felt relieved that everything was cleared up until a real ghost appeared. It was a girl who had died 400 years ago. She introduced herself as Oshizu and said she was happy the aliens were gone because they used to sing loudly at night and wouldn't let her sleep. They also kept asking her to hang out with them. Meanwhile, Mikado took the aliens to a haunted house that hired space creatures. But when they got there, the place had shut down. The owner had turned it into a brothel and said he now only hired female aliens. With no other options, Mikado brought the aliens back to the old school. Oshizu offered to teach them how to become transformers, saying she had been trained to be graceful and charming since she was young. The aliens agreed, hoping it would help them find new jobs. Oshizu began teaching them how to sing and dance in traditional styles. After some training, the aliens and Oshizu got hired by the brothel owner. However, as they began to work, Lala was shocked to find out that Zaston was one of their regular customers. The following week, Mikado received a large package from space, but it wasn't for her but for Lala. She went to get Lala, and Rito and Seiruyama followed her to the rooftop to check it out. When Lala opened the package, a giant cat-like creature leaped out and began attacking her. Pet K explained that someone had sent the beast to get rid of Lala. Lala dodged the creature's sharp claws as best as she could, but suddenly, the beast clutched her stomach in pain and they realized she was pregnant. Right away, Rito and Seiruyama carried her to the infirmary. Since Mikado wasn't around, Seiruyama stayed to help. As the contractions got stronger, he held her paw and showed her how to breathe through it like an expert. After a few hours, the baby was born. The mother, now much smaller and calmer, apologized to Lala. She admitted she had only accepted the job to eliminate Lala because she needed money to care for her child. Lala didn't take it personally, even though Rito thought she should. Instead, she offered the cat a souvenir from Earth and asked if there was anything else she wanted. Surprisingly, the alien cat asked for Seiruyama. Without wasting a second, he yelled out his refusal. Later, Rito joked that Seiruyama might be the perfect souvenir. He was from Earth, and maybe he'd even be happier on another planet. But Seiruyama didn't find it funny and ran off. Lala chased him down the hallways, still trying to convince him, and when her friends heard what was going on, they were horrified. They said Lala couldn't offer Seiruyama as a representative of Earth since Bro was nothing but a national embarrassment. Oddly enough, that made Seiruyama feel a bit proud. They even decided to dress him up to make him more presentable. In the end, he was dressed like a fish and handed over to Lala. Lala brought fish Seiruyama to the alien cat. She smiled and said he could be the baby's father. Lala thought it sounded great, but the alien cat asked if Seiruyama already had a girlfriend. She didn't want to take him if he was in a relationship, because she wanted him to be happy. Right then, Seiruyama jumped up from the floor and said he did have someone. Then he bolted. Mikado returned to the infirmary and found out everything that had happened. Meanwhile, Seiruyama begged Rito to help him find a girlfriend. The two of them asked almost every girl in school, but none of them said yes. In fact, most of them said no with punches. Beat up and depressed, Seiruyama sat alone until Haruna walked over and asked what was wrong. He suddenly begged her to date him. Rito was so shocked, he jumped between them. Then he realized what he did and started blushing. After thinking hard, Rito came up with one last idea. Seiruyama could say his girlfriend was a puppy. He dragged him back to the infirmary, but when they got there, the alien cat and her baby were already gone. Lala had taken them to the roof. It turned out Mikado had told the alien she shouldn't rely on a man, but proved that she was an ultimate feminist. So the alien cat had chosen to return home. She left a message for Seiruyama, saying she hoped he would be happy, which made Seiruyama shed some tears. 2 days later, Lala saw on the news that it was hot spring season and immediately asked Rito to take her to one. But Rito explained there weren't any hot springs nearby. Not one to give up, Lala decided to dig her own hot spring right in Rito's backyard. She handed him some money and sent him off to buy her a drink. While Rito was at the convenience store, Yami suddenly attacked him. He dodged her with ease, surprising her enough to compliment his speed. Curious, she asked about Lala. At that moment, Lala's friends were passing by, and Rito told them all that Lala was building a hot spring. That news got everyone excited. When Rito got back home, Lala proudly showed off her newest invention, which was a huge machine she called a super excavator, built specifically to dig hot springs. Suddenly, Lala's friends showed up with Haruna after hearing about it. Yami brought Mikado along too, and Sayuriyama popped up out of nowhere as usual. Everyone climbed aboard Lala's excavator, ready for the adventure, except Saki, who also wanted to come but got completely ignored. Lala's machine was incredibly powerful. As it started digging, it didn't take long for them to hit something surprising, an ancient treasure and the hidden entrance to Atlantis. But Lala barely gave it a second glance. She was only focused on finding hot water. Eventually, the excavator broke through to a large underground space filled with colorful hot springs. Lala named it the Subterranean Rainbow Hot Springs, like it was her own personal spa resort. Unfortunately for the boys, they weren't allowed to bathe with the girls. Instead, they were squeezed into a tiny spring inside a well. Sayuriyama, never one to follow rules, decided he wasn't going to miss out. He climbed out and dove into one of the bigger springs, happily swimming around while ignoring the girls yelling at him. Then, without a care, he moved on to the spring where Mikado was soaking. Mikado told the boys they could join her, but warned that the water was way too hot for humans. That was all they needed to hear to scramble out fast. Next, they tried visiting Yami's spring, but she didn't feel like sharing. With one move, she sent them flying out. Meanwhile, Lala told Haruna she wanted to dig a private spring just for the two of them in the backyard. As Lala kept digging, Haruna waited nearby. When she heard Rito's voice, she called out and asked him to join her, saying she felt lonely. Back underground, Lala kept digging deeper and deeper until she accidentally hit a layer of magma. That mistake triggered a chain reaction, and nearby volcanoes began to erupt. Lava started pouring into the area, and everyone quickly jumped onto the excavator to escape. In the rush, they also ended up destroying an underground mole kingdom, just as the moles were preparing to invade the surface. That weekend, Lala and Rito decided to watch an anime show on Crunchyroll and wasted the whole screen time doing that. After the show, while Lala found this interesting, Rito wondered what the heck was funny. The next day, Mikado brought Rito and Lala to meet an editor named Kimio. He created travel magazines for aliens and was looking for safe places on Earth to feature. At first, Rito and Lala couldn't think of any place that welcomed aliens. But then Kimio suggested that if Rito opened an inn just for aliens, it might become known as the best in the whole universe. That idea immediately caught Rito's attention, and Mikado offered him the old school building to use. Rito still wasn't sure about the whole thing, but Lala promised to help with everything, and that finally convinced him. Kimio was excited and said he would come for the grand opening. After that, Lala called Zastin and his black-suited crew to help with renovations. They worked for days, and soon the rundown school building turned into a brand new alien inn. Just like he said, Kimio showed up for the opening and recorded a promotional video for aliens all across space. The next morning, Lala asked Peike to dress her like a young innkeeper. Peike also gave Rito a matching outfit, making them look like a cute couple running the place. Their first guest was Yami, who asked for a regular room. After her, two enormous women arrived, followed by a group of space frogs wearing suits that let them move in Earth's gravity. Rito worked hard to make sure the guests felt welcome, but it wasn't exactly easy. The giant women wanted their backs washed, and they were so tall that Rito had to use a broom just to reach their shoulders. Then the frogs asked for Japanese snacks. To handle the strong gravity inside their room, Lala gave Rito a special mask. It worked, but even standing in the room felt like lifting weights. Later, Rito told Lala they needed more hands. They brought in Yami, Oshizu, and Mikan to help. With them on board, running the inn became much smoother. The next day, the guests checked out and Rito figured the day would stay quiet. But peace didn't last long. A short ninja suddenly showed up, asking for rooms for himself and his group. Rito and Lala gave them an entire floor, not realizing they were rebels planning to overthrow the king of Deviluk. While the ninjas studied their battle plans, Rito kept walking in, trying to be a good host. Eventually, the leader got annoyed and told him to stop. Rito let Lala know, and she decided to serve them tea herself. He followed her, and when they entered the room, they saw the ninjas going over a map of Deviluk. The ninjas didn't bother hiding it, thinking Earthlings wouldn't understand. But Lala did. She quickly pointed out she was from Deviluk and showed her tail to prove it. Seeing this, the ninja boss tried to take her out, but Zastin arrived just in time, and a huge fight broke out. Even with help from the men in black, the ninjas were too strong, so Yami joined the battle. Lala pulled out one of her gadgets to help, but it exploded instead, ending the fight and blowing up the whole inn. In the end, Kimio made an announcement across the galaxy that Earth no longer had an inn for aliens. As for Mikado, she was left treating a full room of injured people in her infirmary. After some time, Yami looked back at everything she had done since arriving on Earth and felt it was time for a change. She decided to start searching for a job. Around that same time, the students were getting ready for the upcoming school culture festival. Yui suggested they do a calligraphy performance, but most of the class found the idea too boring. Sayuriyama stepped in, took over as class representative, and asked everyone what they actually wanted. After tossing around a few ideas, the class agreed to go with an animal-themed coffee shop. Sayuriyama quickly named herself the producer and came up with the bright idea of measuring all the girls for costumes. That plan didn't last long, as the girls weren't having it and kicked all the boys out of the room. Lala's friends decided to handle the measurements themselves, but they were a bit too rough. The noise and shouting inside left the boys outside wondering if a wild animal had been let loose in there. Meanwhile, Saki was determined to make sure her class won first place at the festival. Her loyal sidekicks pointed out that Lala's class was their biggest competition. While all this was going on, Yami kept trying to find a job as an assassin, but every attempt ended in failure. As the festival drew closer, the whole class got busy with preparations. Lala offered to help by using her gadgets, but Rito reminded her that the fun of a festival was in doing things with your own hands. That seemed to change her mind. Everyone was getting into the spirit, well, everyone except Yui. She wasn't enjoying herself until Haruna spoke to her about what the festival was really about: teamwork and fun. That helped, and Yui finally joined in with the rest of the class. A few days before the event, everything was ready, but one student couldn't make it. Not knowing what else to do, Lala decided to offer the role to Yami, who was still feeling discouraged about her job search. The plan worked out well. The animal-themed coffee shop was a big hit with the visitors, especially with girls like Lala and her friends dressed as cute animals. On the other hand, Saki's bug-themed shop didn't do so well. Turns out most people didn't like the idea of being served coffee by someone dressed like an insect. One morning at school, Sayuriyama observed that all the pretty girls were crushing on Rito, and he imagined him as a lord of an Edo castle with a beautiful woman who wanted to lick him dry. He also wished he were a lord of an Edo castle and instantly saw himself in one. But while he thought he now had access to top-tier baddies, he discovered that they were just a group of ugly, frisky aliens. He thought this must be a nightmare, and evil though he was indeed dreaming. He couldn't wake up from the dream. He further dreamed about going around the castle like a thirsty single idiot, but everyone hated him and even marched on his face. He woke up from the dream, but Lala soon appeared with her new invention that smacked his head, sending him back to the castle. He dreamed the same dream again until they marched on his face again. He woke up from the dream again, but before he could say Jack, Lala's invention smacked his head again, sending him back to the dream the third time. This time, he had been sentenced to being beheaded. Things got really messy and terrible from there as bro was getting bounced all over the place. Just like a typical dream, he somehow found himself in the sea where his alien waifus began chasing him again. He was soon captured and taken to the room full of creepy alien waifus ready to taste his meat. He woke up from this dream acting like a psycho, and seeing him, Lala ran out, thinking he had gone crazy. Some days later, Lala woke and suddenly started getting embarrassed about things she wasn't shy about, which made him wonder what was wrong. He soon realized she had a temperature and took her to the infirmary to be checked. Mikado revealed that she had the reversal flu, which was responsible for changing a carrier's personality. Rito was surprised to know such a flu existed and asked how to cure it, to which Mikado replied that it would take several days to ship the vaccine there since it was a space flu. However, she assured that Lala was fine and Rito didn't have to worry because Earthlings are immune to the flu. They returned to class, and later that night, when Rito barged in on her in the bathroom, she quickly covered herself, which was very unlike her. Rito felt the reversal flu was pretty cool though, but he was woken by a completely different Lala the next morning who made him burn some calories on a budget treadmill she invented. This made him realize that the flu had gotten worse, so he headed to Mikado to ask about the vaccine. She told him it hadn't arrived yet, and went on to tease him if he liked the Lala of the previous day, since she gave this Haruna vibe, embarrassing him. Over the next few days, Lala went through different episodes of multiple personality disorder, even to the point that she took up a general role and promised Rito to help him conquer Earth first before he went on to become the greatest man in the universe. Rito tried to talk her out of this, but it all fell on deaf ears. She was gonna come with her army by noon the next day and carry out her goal. So Rito went to meet Mikado for feedback on the drug arrival, but she told him it wouldn't arrive until the next day. However, the next day, while the drug delayed in its arrival, Rito went to Lala to try to talk her out of it, but she didn't listen, and she had even managed to convince Sayuriyama and the others to join her. A battle broke out, and while he tried to resist the android army he was up against, Yami entered the scene, gave him the vaccine for Lala, telling him to go give it to Lala while she handled the bot army. As he attempted to get close, a bot pinned him to the ground. At this time, it was almost noon and Lala was planning to launch her attack on Earth. She almost clicked on the button, but Rito suddenly screamed he loved her, instantly curing her of her flu and returning her to her senses. However, while they did some mini check on themselves, King Deviluk suddenly appeared in a UFO and sucked Lala away, saying he was not in support of their marriage. Upon meeting her father, Lala asked him what was going on, and he told her he had come to make Rito fulfill his promise to become the greatest man in the universe. Lala tried to talk him out of it, saying that Rito was just a normal guy from Earther, but King Deviluk wouldn't listen. Afterwards, Zastan met Rito to deliver the message that would decide the fate of the Earth. The king would be holding a game starting the next day in which Rito would be Earth's representative. Rito would be given an objective to reach Deviluk's spaceship before a specific time, but on the way to the ship, there'd be many obstacles. Zastan finally said that if he failed, the Earth would be destroyed, shocking him. The whole Earth became tense as they wondered what the fate of the Earth would be. Rito's phone began to ring with all his friends trying to cheer him up and express their trust in him. He finally received a call from Haruna who asked them to meet, and because reporters were in front of his house, he headed out through the roof to meet her. Meeting her, she remembered when he screamed his love for Lala the day before, and he tried to escape that he only said that in the heat of the moment. The truth is he had always liked Haruna, but he couldn't bring himself to say this because he didn't have the balls to. He finally told her that if he successfully completes the Deviluk's challenge, he would tell her his true feelings. The test began the next day, and Rito started to run toward the ship. But while he thought all his sprinting trainings in the past were paying off, King Deviluk started to rain rocks on his path. Then some monster vines appeared and began to latch onto whoever was in their paths. Bro tried to escape but almost got caught until Mikado, Yue, and Seiriyama appeared in a car to rescue him. They told him that they realized that the only requirement for winning was to get to the ship. It wasn't stated that he couldn't be assisted, thanks to Yu who figured. However, as they escaped from the monster vines, Deviluk sent another attack that crushed the road before them, making them unable to continue. Just then, Saki appeared with a chopper, and they all got in, but just a few minutes later, another barrage of attacks was unleashed on them, almost crashing the chopper. But Yami saved them just in time, before they got squashed, and landed them safely. Meanwhile, Haruna's friends went to her house where she was watching the whole thing on her TV, and told her they needed to play their part too, as there was something they believed only she could do. And while she thought she was pretty useless to Rito, they forcefully dragged her along. They soon entered an already waiting cab of which Ren was the driver, and they took off for Rito's location immediately. The next challenge came with cloth-melting slimes, but Rito's friends sacrificed themselves for him so he could escape and complete the challenge. But as he approached Deviluk's ship with 1 hour left to dawn, Deviluk had prepared a final obstacle to ensure he failed. Some parasitic plants suddenly appeared and sprayed some gases at him that instantly sent him into an illusion where he saw Lala and Haruna stripped. They approached him and began to pleasure him, telling him they had both decided to marry him. Rito entered Cloud 9 in a second and slept off. Meanwhile, everyone watching got concerned because Rito wasn't moving again, and they worried that this was the end. But Haruna appeared at that moment. She screamed his name, instantly waking him up from his illusion. He then ran for the finish line and crossed it just in time. Afterward, Rito suddenly found himself in a suit and Lala standing beside him in a wedding gown, while everyone cheered for them, shocking him. Deviluk finally acknowledged that he had become the greatest man in the universe and was free to marry his daughter, but Rito became sober because the girl he really loved was Haruna. Knowing this, Lala cut in and told her dad she would be wicked if she didn't consider Rito's true feelings and make this all about herself. She added that this was why she would break off their engagement, shocking everyone. She then told them she was going to start all over by erasing her memory from all their heads with one of her inventions. She immediately activated the device before they could stop, and the next day she appeared in school as a new transfer student, only that they recognized her immediately. That crap didn't work. If you enjoyed this recap, clap the like button and insult the main character like a true Annie and Dare fan. Also, subscribe to the channel if you're yet to for more plot-filled adventures. If you like anime recaps like this, watch this video right here.